The first time I saw my wife coming out of the upstairs apartment over the coffee shop, it wasn't with my own eyes. It was through someone else's. The barista downstairs sent me a 20-second story, one of those boomerang things that loop like a bad thought. In it, Britt came out laughing with the landlord, 2 paper cups in his hands, her palm on the rail like she owned the night. She was supposed to be reading a rescue dog bedtime stories at an old writer's place 3 blocks away. My stomach didn't so much drop as fold, like someone had closed a knife and set it back in the drawer. I'm Damon, 38, paramedic with a county unit. The job teaches you to count breaths and also moments. It teaches you to find the pulse that's there and admit the one that isn't. We lived over a cafe in downtown Jacksonville that smells like espresso and cinnamon even in the rain. The kind of place where the barista knows your name and your dog's snack preference. The kind of place where second floors become rumors. Britt runs what she calls a micropatel, 6 kennels, a stack of folding crates, 24 leashes braided like old rope, and a list of good people who open their homes for a weekend when a dog needs a soft landing. She dog sits in the center when it's busy, and when it's not, she says yes to every ask because yes sounds like purpose. Somewhere between the county shelter and the street, she picked up a voice that made donors write checks and volunteers show up with towels. It was the voice that first made me notice her. It still worked on me too long. The first night it shifted, she said she had a quiet read for a senior writer who couldn't sleep without a dog next to him. He likes Pickles, she said. Says he calms his nerves. I'm going to take our boy and read him a chapter from that war memoir, 2 Birds. Pickles is a rascal, not a service dog, I said, scratching our mutt's terrible eyeliner face. He is a mixed terrier who thinks rules are furniture. He's unnatural, she said, kissing the top of his head. You should rest. Long shift tomorrow. The wording was soft. The shape was a locked door. Pickles is our tell. He is also our problem. He hates vacuum cleaners and loves yogurt cups. He is indifferent to thunder but will throw his whole body at a leaf. That night, when Britt clipped on his leash, he leaned back hard and let out a sound I hadn't heard since the day we brought him home. A low, steady growl that made the air feel like it had a grain to it. His hackles rose in a line. He stared at the door not with excitement, but dread. Hey, Britt said, bright and coaxing. What's this? Adventure. He planted his feet. I'd seen him plant them before, not like this. This was a small dog telling the room the weather had changed. Maybe he's tired, I said. He just slept on the couch for 3 hours, she said, making a face that said, my opinion wasn't invited. Or maybe he doesn't like this writer, I said. Our boy's judgment is questionable, but it exists. She exhaled like I'd told a joke at a funeral. I'll take the rescue shepherd. He's calmer. She unhooked Pickles, who bolted to his crate and sat there with his ears at half-mast like he'd learned a new shape for no. She left with the shepherd and her tote of dog books at her hip, the door closing with a care that felt practiced. The cafe closed at 9. The upstairs apartment door opened at 11:13 p.m., if the little timestamp on the story the barista sent me can be trusted. In it, Britt's hair was down in a way it never is when she's doing intake or walking a jittery pit. The landlord, Carter, the kind of man who wears a watch that glints under a streetlight, held a cup out like a toast to no one. The caption said, "Midnight lattes for the VIPs," with a winky face I could feel and not see. The story went away after 24 hours. The ache did not. I'm trained to notice small things. In my world, small things grow big fast. Your color, your breath, the way you hold your jaw, the way your hands go quiet when your voice says you're fine. In the days that followed, Britt collected new small things. A bracelet with a charm she said came from one of the volunteers. A ring with a tiny paw she claimed she bought on sale. A necklace with a half moon that looked like something a person would give a person at a threshold. I asked once and she grinned and said, "We have generous people." The generous people sent coffee cards, blankets, a tower of canned food that turned our pantry into a respectable bunker. And then there were the nights. "The old writer's sleep is worse," she texted one Thursday. "He asks for the roast of the day and someone to read to the dog. I'll take the new hound." I stared at the text and thought about the way the barista had smirked when she gave me my Americano that morning, the way she held a foam heart on a cappuccino, just enough too long to mean something, and said, quietly, "You good?" I nodded because that is what men do when the question is too big to hold at a counter. I didn't go looking through Brit's phone because there's a line I don't cross on reflex. I did look at mine. We share rides because it makes sense, because being married means sometimes you merge. Uber had started sending me receipts for late-night trips from our block to a neighborhood 4 stops down the bus line and back again at 2+ in the morning. The destination on the little map was the same rectangle every time. Edisto Apartments, which sit over the coffee shop in a row of brick with a fire escape I used to admire for no reason and now resented like a habit. The pickup was upper apartment entrance. I know that entrance. It is the door the landlord opens with a little flourish when he shows off the front. We had walked through it once at an open house, when we thought about moving 2 floors down. "Imagine the convenience," Brit had said, half laughing, half something else. I told myself stories about the receipts. The driver's route was wrong. The PIN was off. The app misbehaved. People do that. We explain things when the truth wants to show its teeth. I'm not proud of how long I explained. Pickles didn't explain. He started treating the stairs like a trap. On weekends, when we took him out for a walk under the string lights, he would pull right and then stop left and then pull right again, as if his body couldn't decide which set of scents were allowed. One night, he wriggled out of his harness. He took off across the sidewalk to the little exterior door beside the coffee shop's back entrance, the kind with scuffed paint that everyone assumes hides a mop bucket. He put both front paws on that door and scratched, hard, letting out a whine that did not belong to a confused dog. It belonged to a dog that knew exactly what he was asking. "Pickles," I said, pulling him back. "Buddy, no!" He dug in, scraped again. His nails made a complicated sound on rough wood. Inside, somewhere, a bolt slid home, a sound you don't hear unless you're listening. I pulled him into my arms. He trembled and licked my chin like he was apologizing for telling the truth too loud. I carried him upstairs. He made a small noise in the stairwell that I will hear when I am 80. The barista downstairs is named Nate. He is 24 and has a smile like a loose button. We trade coffees and first aid advice. He texts me when a regular looks wrong and I swing by if I'm between calls. He also texts when I need to know something. The night after Pickle scratched at the door, he sent me a short video from the cafe's security camera, the inside one that faces the pastry case but sees the bottom of those stairs in the corner. In it, Pickles appears in the far edge, breaking into the frame like a rabbit with a mission. He runs to the door and paws it. The door opens a crack. A hand comes out, not to pet him, but to push him back gently, like you'd push a child you don't want to let in. The hand wears a ring I have seen on Carter at least 5 times. Then the hand disappears, and the door closes, and the bolt clicks with a sound. The camera picks up like a dropped dime. The angle goes wide. For a second, you can see a sliver of the landing. You can see 2 shadows move together like magnets that never learned manners. Nate added a text. "Dude, I'm sorry." I stared at the tiny screen until my vision wandered. Then I put the phone down on the table and stared at the wood like it could give me back a version of the night before any of this started. My hands wanted to make a fist and didn't. My chest hurt like I had just run with gear up 3 flights. I thought about calling my partner from the unit, the one who tells me bad jokes at 2 in the morning to keep the air from getting shark. I didn't call. The house had ears. The next morning, Britt came in with a flat of canned pumpkin and a bag of kibble. Marisol's donors sent extras, she said, referring to the shelter owner we both call by her first name like church people. We're tight on space. Carter said I could stash some things under the back stairs, just for the weekend. Under the back stairs? I should have laughed. I didn't. We have a closet. It's full of pickles, she said, smiling. Her shirt said, "Adopt, don't shop," in a font that makes people want to be elected to something. I looked at the cans and thought about the shape of the lie. Our dog is terrible at lying because he doesn't understand payoff. We are not so blessed. I picked up a can and put it back in the flat. Pickles is good at what he's good at, I said. He's also good at telling me when a door is wrong. She stared at me. We are not going to be the couple that talks about the dog like a therapist. We're the couple that has to talk, I said, and my voice felt like a stretcher under a heavier person than I expected. Do not put anything under any stairs. Not food, not leashes, not our marriage. Drama, she said, but the color left her cheeks like she owed it money. That afternoon, the shelter board scheduled a fundraiser on the cafe's sidewalk. Tables with brochures, a donation jar with a paw banked on it, a banner that shouted a mission we both believed in before belief got crowded by proof. They asked me if I could do a little speech because I wear a uniform some days, and people hear that uniform even if it's a t-shirt and an old jacket. Just say something about community, Marisol said, her hands full of clipboards and hope. Sure, I said. My tongue did not belong to me. My hands did. They shook. In the days before the event, Britt started sleeping on the couch with her back to me, like the room needed to see she wasn't hiding. It was hiding anyway. She wore the new charm when she thought I'd notice, then took it off when she thought I'd notice that too. Pickle slept in his crate like it was a boat. When I opened it, he took 2 steps and looked at me with a face that said, "Please tell the truth even if I don't like it." Dogs have no filter. They are terrible secret keepers. I began to understand why he breathed easier when the door was simple. I compiled a folder because that is what I do when I can't fix a rhythm with my hands. Receipts, video screenshots, the little grid you get from a camera system when someone logs in after midnight, a printed copy of a letter addressed to Carter's property company about unauthorized use of tenant units for private activities with animals on the premises. It came from the landlord of the building that houses the shelter's tiny office, the one who is allergic to liability and drama. He had CC'd me because I had called him and described the click I heard through a dog's paws. I added a statement I wrote myself because saying it out loud scared me more than stitching anything I've ever stitched on a porch. It was not a laundry list. It was a map. The map had 3 stops. The barista's video, the Uber receipts, the door with the scratch marks. That was enough. The rest is gravity. The fundraiser day dawned mean. Florida can do it. Everyone thinks it's always soft. Some days, the sun makes lines around everything and dares you to step over them. The cafe set out pastries and brewed coffee that could fix grudges. Volunteers brought shy dogs with bandanas and smiles you could drink. People came because they like animals or because they like themselves in mirrors that reflect kindness. We set up a small mic on a stand that squealed for attention and then sat still. Britt looked beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. She had the kind of glow that comes from moving heavy things on purpose. Grant wasn't there. Carter was. He is the kind of man who blends when he wants to and shines when it works. He was shining. He shook hands with donors and laughed just enough louder than the person he was speaking to. He set his palm on Britt's shoulder twice, 3 times. I saw her flinch once and then soften like she remembered her lines. Marisol tapped the mic. It squeaked and then found its word. She thanked people for coming, said some true things about dogs and second chances and the way community is a net you only see when you fall. She talked about the micro-patel like it was a miracle. It is a miracle. 6 kennels can be a miracle if you have ever watched fear turn into tail. She asked for help. People nodded. the jar filled with bills that looked bigger than I would have predicted from the looks of the shoes. "And now," she said, smiling like someone who has learned to trust the next sentence, "Damon is going to say something." I stepped forward with my paper in my pocket and a dog eye on my ankle. Pickles had pressed himself to my shins like I was the only piece of furniture in the room. I took a breath like I do before I push a gurney over a threshold. "Thanks," I said. "I work the streets. Some days I love Jacksonville because it is beautiful in angles most people don't look at. Some days I love it because people talk to each other. And some days I love it because the buildings tell the truth even when people don't." A small murmur rippled because that sentence has a shape people recognize. "I want to thank the donors," I said. "I want to thank the volunteers whose hands smell like bleach and peanut butter when they go home. I want to thank the baristas who watch out for our dogs when they tie up for a latte and the people upstairs who keep things safe for our community." Carter smiled at that last bit like he'd been named in a program. "And," I said, feeling the word like a bar in my hands, "I want to honor what keys mean. A key is a promise. It's not a toy. It's not a date. It's not a shortcut." The sound on the sidewalk changed then. It got thin in that way air does when someone exhales all at once. I turned to Marisol and handed her the folder. Inside is a security story from the cafe, a set of ride receipts, and a letter from a landlord about the use of a particular upstairs unit. It is not gossip. It is what the building recorded. I'm not handing you a scandal. I'm handing you a safety note. Britt looked at the ground like the concrete had words for her. Pickles licked my wrist, then looked up at me with the old face he had before any of this. The barista stared at his shoes. Carter checked his phone like there was anything on it that could help. Marisol didn't open the folder. She doesn't open things she can't win yet. She held it like she holds a sick dog at intake and nodded once, slow. "We will look," she said into the mic. "We will do right." I took the mic again because it was there, and because silence is where lies grow. "I'm not going to talk about my marriage," I said, which of course meant I was. "I'm going to talk about our dog." He scratched at the wrong door. He told me a truth I didn't want. "I'm listening. We all have to." I handed the next envelope, the one with the property documents and the letter requesting an audit of keys, to a man from the property company who had shown up looking like he came to shake hands and ended up catching a hot pan. He took it because that is what he is paid to do. He did not look pleased. He did look awake. Carter made the mistake then of trying to step on stage. "We can handle this internally," he said, the kind of phrase men with too many keys learn because it works on people who like rugs. Marisol pointed to the sidewalk. "No," she said in a voice that made Donor straighten. "We'll handle it with the dogs in mind, off the mic." He smiled, thin. "We're all good people here." "Good people use keys for what they're for," she said. The crowd didn't cheer. They did something better. They didn't look away. Britt waited until the mic was safely in them, not us hands. Then she put Pickles' leash in mine and said, very softly, "I'm staying here tonight." "I know," I said. My voice did the hard thing. It didn't crack. "He needs me," she said. "Pickles needs me," I said, and a piece of the world arranged itself into a small, honest square. She nodded. It wasn't surrender. It was the last copy of a map being folded and put in a drawer. She turned, walked to a corner of the sidewalk where a stack of donated crates sat under a banner, put her hand on the top one like she needed to feel the weight of the phrase "dogs first." Carter stood 3 feet behind her, suddenly very interested in a conversation about building codes with a man who did not appear to understand English because the man did not want to understand English right then. I took Pickles home. I set his crate in the bedroom and put my hand on the bars because his breathing is an engine that makes the house run when the power wants to flicker. He stared at me and then laid his head down with a sigh that sounded like 9 months compressed into one. The email started during my next shift. The building of the shelter's owner requested a meeting to discuss the use of donation storage spaces. The property company above the cafe asked for clarification on occupancy and after-hours access. Marisol wrote me privately and said, "Thank you for handing me paper instead of making me chase ghosts." I wrote back. "I am tired of ghosts," she replied. "Me too." The chief of the firehouse came into the cafe 2 days later, took his coffee to go, and said, not to anyone in particular, "Keys get audited this week." He put a hand on Nate's shoulder and told him the brownies tasted like a fundraiser should. Then he left. I watched it through the window and felt something unclench between my ribs. I don't know how to describe it except to say the building had said its piece and the room had heard. Britt texted that night. "I'll be upstairs," she wrote. "No names. You can keep Pickles." "I will," I wrote, and I didn't add anything because more would be less. My thumb hovered over "love you" like a tourist over a souvenir rack. I put the phone down. I took Pickles out to pee. He sniffed the corner and decided the world wasn't trying to outsmart him anymore. I decided that was enough proof for one night. I'm not going to pretend the days that followed were cinematic. They were paperwork and quiet. Lawyers use the word partition like it is a curtain. It is not. It is a saw. We outlined dog time. We said words about assets while we both looked at the cheap ceramic mug we bought in St. Augustine like someone had died and left us a haunted cup. I took a few extra evening shifts because I needed my hands to do more than hold a leash. I told my partner, who said, "Man," 5 times in a row and then shut up when I didn't laugh. He rode with me on a call to a woman who fell at the farmer's market and made the world normal again by acting like a fall is a thing that happens, not a metaphor. Britt stayed in the upstairs apartment for a week. Then 2. She called the shelter board and told them she had crossed lines with storage and access. She said she was stepping back. She didn't cry on the phone. She cried later in the stairwell, where no one could see except the little cafe camera that I asked Nate not to send me any more from because I don't need to know how she holds her face when she thinks she is alone. That's her truth to keep, not mine to weigh. Carter sent a text that said, "No harm, no foul. We can put this behind us." I stared at the words and thought about the way harm and foul are cousins, not strangers. I didn't reply. He sent another with a smiley face that made me want to salt the earth where emojis grow. I blocked the number. He can talk to the property manager and the folder. Pickles stopped scratching at strange doors. He started scratching at mine when I took too long to eat breakfast before a walk. He slept belly up under the fan like our ceiling was a TV meant for dogs. He greeted me when I came home from shifts like I had invented walking. He flinched once when a key turned in the hall at 2030 and then looked at me and decided the night belonged to us. He wasn't wrong. I like to think I am a calm man. Paramedics leer at chaos and put a hand on its head like a dog. The thing that surprised me most wasn't how angry I could get if I let myself rehearse the video or replay the keys. It was how hard it was not to keep inventing new angles that made me the hero and her the villain. Or me, the fool, and her, the only human in the room. The truth is rougher and kinder. She is a person who wanted to feel like she mattered and took a shortcut through a door that didn't belong to her. I am a person who wanted to be the kind of man who rescues everything and learned I am only allowed to rescue what asks me to. When the landlord's landlord sent me a copy of the resolution letter, it was 4 paragraphs of pure management. It said keys were changed and logs would be kept and policies updated. It said tenants will not be allowed to sublet or use residential units for ongoing social activities with rescue animals. It did not say the thing that was true for me. The dog told the truth first, and the building agreed. That's fine. Letters don't have to be poetry if the locks turn the way they should. Britt came by last week with a paper grocery bag and a look. The bag had 3 of Pickles' old toys and 2 treats that made his eyes go wide because he is a creature of the immediate. The look had 1,000 things we will not fix. She stood on the porch and said, I told the board everything. They asked me to take a break. I said yes. Good, I said. Breaks are where we learn not to lift with our backs. I hate that you're funny, she said, but the smile stayed on only one side of her mouth. I'm sorry. I know, I said, and what I meant was, I believe you're sorry and that won't make the bed feel the same. Both can be true. People think those truths have to fight. They can sit together if you let them. They won't like it, but they can. She looked past me into the room like a tourist wanting a tour, but not a ticket. He's okay? She asked, tilting her head toward the little snore machine under the end table. He's getting great at sleeping, I said. He learned it from me. Tell him I love him, she said. You can tell him, I said, but he'll love the person who clips the leash and opens the door. That's just dogs. She nodded. That's just people too, she said, and I couldn't argue with that. We didn't hug. Florida makes you sweat for contact. We're both tired. We waved like the old neighbors we are becoming. She walked down the hall. I watched her until she turned the corner. Pickles rolled over and exhaled like a man who has finally stopped trying to solve a puzzle with the wrong piece. I used to think the worst part would be the day I decided to be done. It wasn't. The worst part was the weeks before, listening to Keys at 2:30 and pretending the door meant something it didn't. The best part is smaller than people promise you in movies. It's a dog pressing a wet nose to your palm at 6 in the morning and the coffee tasting like it did before anyone learned anyone else's passwords. It's not peace. It's not pride. It is relief. Relief is quieter and it keeps better. I don't know if I did everything right. I know I did enough. I know I didn't stand on that sidewalk and name names or spit. I handed paper to a person whose job it is to take paper and turn it into locks and logs and consequences that don't explode but stick. I walked home with the dog that trusts me because I clipped the leash and opened the door for the walk he wanted, not the one that made the better story. When all of this started, Britt told me the old writer needed someone to read to his dog. It's funny. Dogs don't need words. They need presence. They need a hand near the bowl and a door that opens to outside and a person who comes back when they say they will. People pretend they need fancier things. Maybe that's why we screw it up. Maybe the trick is to love like a creature who can't type. If you were me, would you have walked up to that mic or kept it between the four of us and hoped it faded out? Where's the line for you between kindness and looking away when the dog is scratching the wrong door? Thanks for listening to my story. If it resonated, share how you'd handle it and stick around for the next one. Your voice helps more than you think.